Все, трансляция начала. Можешь представить?
Okay, good evening everyone. Can I start? Okay, today we have a very important topic, international law in migration. Migration is not only about work or moving to another country. Behind every process, there are rules, laws, and responsibility. If you want to work professionally and build a strong system, you must understand this legal foundation. This is why today's session is important for all of us. I'm very pleased to introduce you our speaker, Hajar Mubina. She will explain us better understanding how international law regulates migration and what rights migration have, also what responsibilities they carry. Welcome to our speaker.
Thank you very much. I want to start with these warm appreciations for the administrators and those who invited me to this interesting platform. And as mentioned our colleague, my name is Mubina, and today we would like to talk about international law migration. So I want to just start with a brief understanding that international law protects indeed migrants primarily through human rights treaties. Once individuals fall under state jurisdiction, they entitle for protection from forced labor, discrimination, and all of the abuses that people abroad face. And this topic is really widely discussed, especially on international arena. Public debates, we often hear numbers, flows like statistics, labor shortage, border pressures. But today I would like to talk about this topic from another side. Like, migration is not only about political issue. It's not only about economic phenomena, but it's also about legal reality. Like, structured, regulated, supervised, and sometimes contested within the international law. And at the heart of this regulation stands international organization. So if we move for the next slide, we can raise a couple of questions. Through legal paradigm, several questions immediately arise. For example, who set the rules? Who monitors compliance? Who hold the accountants? And who has this responsibility to protect these people who live, who work abroad? And this is international migration governance, indeed it's not chaotic as most people consider it to be. It is more structured via institutions, legal treaties. And today I'll briefly show these legal norms, how they're created and how they're monitored, and simultaneously find the gaps between the law and practice remain at a certain challenge. So, next slide. Is there a unified legal system? The first question arises. And this is a common, I will say, misconception about this legal international law on immigration, because there must be a single international migration code. But in reality, there is no. Migration law is fragmented but structured, because it is drawn from a couple of the bodies, from human rights law, labor law, refugee law, anti-trafficking law, migration law. And this is fragmentation makes international organization irresponsible. So I will say no single institution governs everything, because international law, cannot intervene to the internal changes, internal affairs of the state. So this is the main problem that international law faces on contemporary world, because sovereignty is real, but indeed it's not unlimited. It can be regulated, it can be mutually understood, and come to some consensus within the other group of states. So moving to the next slide, core legal instruments. So we are coming to this who regulates all of the problems topic. The modern legal body begins with the United Nations, as we know, United Nations that was formed after the World War II in order to just maintain this peaceful life for everybody. And one of the main popular their convention declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that introduced the right to live any country. It didn't create a right to enter other state, but there is a distinction remains crucial. For example, legally binding international convent on civil and political rights. So this convent goes beyond human rights because it protects on articles like the right to live, equality before the law, protection from arbitrary detention. That nobody can force you to stay somewhere without your agreement, And importantly, these rights apply all individuals under state jurisdiction, but not only citizens. For example, you go to seek some opportunity to work, to build future, for example, another country, but it doesn't mean that your rights are not taken into consideration. You might think like that if you are not aware about international law. So how does international organization transform these abstract principles into operational law? We can go for the next slide.
International. For distracting you, can you here explain a little bit in Russia, because we have some viewers who is better to understand in Russia?
Yes, simultaneously I just added some Russian important. Можем сказать то, что это вот международное право, знаете, немного преувеличено тем, что многие думают, что оно ничем не занимается. На самом деле оно занимается. У них очень хороший agreement есть. Но просто дело в том, что каждая страна имеет свой суверенитет. И такие инструменты дают право людям, которые работают за границей, чтобы они понимали свои права. То, что их права не действуют только под каким-то ограничением границам, если они знают про свои права в международном сфере, в международной арене. Вот права, имеющие отношение к мигрантам, как раз-таки такие articles, статьи есть в этой, справедливым, благоприятным условиям труда, профсоюзы, здоровье, социальное обеспечение. Они существуют. Просто дело в том, что каждая сторона по-другому смотрят на такие статьи, и право, последнее слово, конечно, остается же за ними, за их суверенитетом, за их политикой, внедрять, не внедрять, но те, которые соблюдают эти права, конечно же, состоятся в членах ООН. Вот. Можем двигаться дальше. Следующий слайд. Хорошо. Мне как на английском или на русском просто я подготовила немного на... Можем миксировать, если что.
Да, можно и так делать.
Да, я постараюсь попроще объяснить.
На компьютере или как?
Это у меня комп завис.
Все понятно.
Я не могу вам презентацию, она вылетела. Вы можете сами презентацию читать? Пожалуйста. Я не могу ее включить вообще, у меня комп не слушается.
Let me share.
Я извиняюсь.
That's okay, happens.
Можете продолжать рассказывать, только вот у вас...
Да, давайте.
Да.
Мы рассказали про Международную организацию труда, которую я тоже считаю, что сильно отличается от других организаций, направленные на права человека, именно которые работают за границей. Но, тем не менее, другие существуют. Например, вот Global Compact for Migration. Это также не на русском, на английском, просто я немного сбилась. So, we can continue with English. Global Compact. This is also adopted by the United Nations General Assembly 2019, but it's not legally binding, but politically significant, I will say, especially within these conferences, general assemblies of United Nations and the countries that are actively involved during these processes. You can hear me? Right? You can hear, right? Okay. This compact for migration reaffirms commitments, again, to human rights, ethical recruitment, legal identity, and international cooperation. This compact, like convention, we can say, functioning as a framework for coordinated migration governance rather than treaty obligation. They focus more on monitoring, coordination, rather than just saying, yeah, we have this treaty, yeah, we have this cooperation signed, but this is something applied in a practice. So generally, what can I say, like, what does international law protect? We have reviewed some major treaties, conventions, organizations that primarily address it for protection of the rights people working abroad. And we can be realistic in terms of international law protection, because there is no general right to migrate for economic reason. Like, there is no binding treaty like written vividly. But once under state jurisdiction, individuals are protected against forced labor, discrimination, and arbitrary detention. This is three major and widely discussed topics in every, I will say, sessions by United Nations, especially to understand and to comply within these protections. Because we are living in 21st century, but the problems persist, like they are there. But the difference and the solution that we can do to understand the problem and try to regulate and try to solve that in a constructive way, not destructive. So international law and international organization help to monitor this process within the couple of countries, because each country has their own interests. They have their own understanding. They have their own traditions. In order to not face these national, constructs, national problems, interest problems, they help to regulate our protection. And I'll give an example of very interesting, just regional institution that works and applies all of this regulation, not only on treaties, but as well as in a practice. This is the European Court of Human Rights. We all know European Union, regional institutions and cooperation organization, and they do have also European Court of Human Rights. And they have repeatedly affirmed that immigration enforcement must comply within the human dignity standards. International law does not erase borders, of course, but it regulates how power exercised at that, not only particular at one country. So we can move with the next slide, right?
Next slide.
On legal migration and state authority. Yes, this one. So legal migration status depends on domestic compliance. We all know, like lawful legally entry, and when you are not, breaking any territorial border issues, valid visa. This is very crucial, and work authorization. This is the three main documents that will, I will say, like guarantee you safe and peaceful work, not only in your country, but abroad. And only states can guarantee or grant, or even sometimes, unfortunately, withdraw the status, but rights to protect operates independently from administrative classification And this distinction is essential. For example, international organizations do not replace state sovereignty. Of course, they not regulate, say, so you change this rule, you change that administrative rule. So they are more in a role of monitoring, mediator, how sovereignty should be exercised. So the next slide, implementation gap and legal problems. So now we are coming to problems within this international arena. So they are really, really good structured with the all of the regulations, all of the treaties. They're really sounding perfect. But what is in reality? We do have problems. So, and the first one, despite sophisticated institutional framework, violation persists as we recurring the pattern, for example, excessive recruitment fee, passport problems, informal labor, and debt dependence. So why they persist? Because law on paper is not enforcement in the practice. As I mentioned it, you can see the law, you can sign the treaties, but the enforcement, implementation works differently in each country. And weak labor inspections can be a reason for that, limited cross-border cooperation, insufficient awareness among immigrants, or just insufficient awareness about these regulations of the state actors, leaders, can lead to these problems as well. So the implementation gap is core governance challenge, I will say, because this is precisely where international organizations develop focus through technical assistance, monitoring mission, and capacity building. The capacity building is very, very important part here because they are raising the awareness. Like when the rule is violated, from my opinion, when people are not aware of that rule, they maybe didn't hear about that rule. And so international organizations help to raise that awareness, to understand that you do have these rules, you do have these rights, so use that appropriately. So we can move to the conclusions slide, right? So migration law today is not empty abstraction, as many people might think about that, but it operates in a multi-layered system of treaties, as we mentioned it, monitoring bodies, expert committee, courts, and reporting procedures. Reporting procedures are not always practiced, but they exist. And hopefully we'll have more reporting procedures in the future, because indeed these procedures, reports can help us to see where problem exists, what kind of problem, and the cause of the problem. Only understanding the root of this problem, we can solve the problem not only from the abstract, but from the deep, deep root. And it reflects a balance between sovereignty, economic necessity, human dignity, and international commitment. We're living in a globalization world where countries will cooperate with themselves, countries will trade, countries will interact with them. But if we are not taking into consideration these commitments, international commitments, and these international regulations, bodies seriously, we will have some problems in the future, I will say. But in reality, this is practicing. We are improving international organizations, really doing efforts, I will say, in order to raise the awareness. First phase of their implementation is raising the awareness of the rights of migrants. And international organizations, as I mentioned before, do not abolish the borders. They do not intervene to state sovereignty. They ensure that the power that state persists, exercised at the borders, remains consistent with the law. Not only applies within for their citizens, but for people who are working there, who are doing their business or living their life. And migration governance is therefore not merely political management, but it also legal accountability. And at this center, institution designs to translate human dignity into enforceable standards that can, in the future, be practiced. So this was the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention. It was very brief. I tried to talk about all of the challenge and tough conventions as much as I can.
Oh, thank you for your interesting speech here. I just remember some articles, UN articles from university, which we learned.
Yes.
Yeah, if there is any questions?
Вопросы можно на русском тоже задавать, если есть какие-то моменты, которые хотели бы уточнить.
Сейчас я не вижу нигде комментариев. If there is no questions, can we just end it? Or
Смотрю, то, что вопросов нету. Мубина, спасибо вам большое, что уделили время.
Спасибо.
Спасибо вам за приглашение.
Да, тогда всего доброго всем. Я трансляцию закрою.
Все, закончили, да?
Да, заканчиваю.
Да, спасибо, Мубина.
Thank you. Всем спасибо. Надеюсь, я успела по регламенту.